Advanced Micro Devices, or AMD stock, is starting to have some serious momentum upwards since hitting that $75, $78 price point. If we go back year to date, it's been interesting to see the momentum. There was a couple months really where if we were following it for the past few years, it's had this consistent uptrend. And then back here in February 2024, they started to sell off. And ever since then, they have sold off. Now, some people look at AMD and they have this trend. Wow, I guess I do have some drawings already. So just trying to not look at those. But hey, this resistance, the peak, you have this trend down here. And some people say, yeah, it's getting rejected. It's getting rejected. And that's what it's going to do. It's hitting that 200-day moving average. It's going to sell back down. And that's what AMD does. But here's the deal. Every time that they've reported earnings, and it's been happening, right, since a pretty long time, but since this 2024 peak, every time they have reported earnings, they've had revenue increasing, their profits increasing. More companies like Tesla and XAI and Starlink and Apple and what was the other one? Microsoft, working with them and focusing on data center usage of AMD, working with AMD on more projects because they're helping fuel AI, and the overall direction, the greater direction, has been up. So this is actually the trend on AMD that I believe it's going to fulfill. While it looks like it's at that 200-day moving average, it looks like it could get rejected. RSI and MACD still kind of like on the upper side of the spectrum. What we're looking for is this recovery in total on AMD stock, getting up into these levels, like continuing that overall trend. It's going to be requiring a hefty amount of institutional investing. In fact, institutions have been selling off, even though they've doubled their revenue here year over year. And what we're looking at now is this level where they can continue their trend. If we take a look, yes, they're coming up now on this recovery, but when we look at the levels, you see it start to break up, and find resistance at $125 there, selling back to $115 now, and it's starting this new trend that is right here. You can start to see the new trend develop where we're starting to see this right here. It's pretty bullish. In fact, it's very bullish, and we're seeing this start to become the new trend. Now, if we look at AMD from this perspective, and we're starting to see this bullish trend continue, well, there's a lot of reasons why it would. Being a provider of chips for some of the biggest data centers in the world, having the recent UAE AI infrastructure deal, having the Starlink partnerships, all the Versal chips that they've put together, and most likely being used not only in Teslas, but most likely in the Optimus robots. And Elon says he's planning to use AMD and NVIDIA and is buying them up very hefty amounts of these GPUs. However, he's looking to make his own chips. He's just not there yet. That's what we hear from Elon. Now, when it comes to the margins for profit on AMD, if we're going to continue this trend, we're looking at this right here, maybe even up into there, which is about a 8 to 10% margin for profit. Now, if we trade it, we'll probably be trading AMDL, which is a 2x of AMD. And the semiconductor market has had a ton of momentum recently. So it's possible it cools down more. It sells down even as low as this previous support here. And this is the more conservative approach. You got this support right here. Let's see here. Let's draw it out. You got a support right here. Support, kind of a resistance, support. And the conservative approach would be a sell down into this $110 range. That would be very conservative. The more bullish outlook that I'm actually hoping happens, and what we'll be watching very closely, is this move where it continues its uptrend and pushes back into those $125 to $130 price points. And from there, when we started to look at that direction, if we see that happen, we're now pushing above the 200-day moving average, which oftentimes acts as a resistance in a bearish market, or acts as a support, as you see here, in a bullish market, that green line. And the blue line, we're starting to see it hold above this EMA. We want to see it hold above this EMA, this blue line. If it does, start to break above the 200-day moving average, that green line, then we're starting to look at new levels, those new targets of up in that $200 range. Now, I believe their revenue could justify it. I believe that their new partnerships they have would justify it. And it's just really a matter of investor sentiment. Even when they were crushing their earnings, they were still selling off. And people are like, what's going on? Why? Why don't they continue up when they were beating their earnings? And the rest of the market after November in the elections were just surging while AMD was selling off, and they continued to sell off. Now we're seeing this break up here into these levels, and I believe that this could be the time when AMD would make sense that if it breaks above this 200-day moving average, we really start to get these levels up in this $200 range, which if it's AMD stock over on AMDL is a 200% margin for profit. So first, we're going to look for this 5 to 10% margin up into this $125 range and see if that's an opportunity that comes at market open on Monday. And that's the deal for the chart. The market they're in is growing. The AMD products that they have, it's really interesting because they really announced recently that they're focusing way more, if you go to their solutions, way more on AI and their data centers. And you can see some of the leading businesses that trust AMD, and they're not all listed here, of course. But you got Oracle, Microsoft, Google, you got Dell, AWS, Epic Games. The data center focus is a big part of AMD's focus. They've shifted away from gaming and towards data centers. But what gets even more interesting is their recent acquisition here. If we take a look at AMD, they recently acquired this company, Brium. It's a AI software company, and it is focused, this company, Brium, that they just acquired, is focused on this LLM inference that is essentially way faster than other models working with AMD and NVIDIA GPUs. So take a look. You can see their model, Brium Inference here. And this is how fast Brium works here. And then on the right, they're running like a very commonly used SG Lang. And look how fast the output is for the AI or the large language model over here on this software, Brium. So essentially, AMD just purchased Brium in the last week, which also basically shows that AMD is going to not only focus on the data centers, not only focus on the PCs and AI and what have you, but now they're really going to be focusing more on the software and cutting edge AI solutions. And that's where they can become a competitor, for example, with more of a competitor with NVIDIA, but more of a competitor with OpenAI, for example. I mean, if they have the data centers, OpenAI is running on a lot of the AMD and NVIDIA data centers, then what does that mean for the future? That means, what if AMD has their own company of large language models that they're offering? That really makes them have a competitive advantage, and that's why we also see them as a company to watch closely. Now, if you search, for example, AMD stock and Starlink, one thing to note here is they recently are powering the Starlink satellites. And that's cool. We're one of the first videos there that came up. And our videos are the go-to for people looking to find that information. So that's great. But it's these Versal chips that are going into the Starlink constellations. The other day I was having dinner with my wife and we were barbecuing out on our patio. And we were looking up and we're like, what is that? That looks so weird. These like lights in the sky. And it was a launch of Starlink where they were sending the satellites into the sky and we could see them start this new constellation. And I was like, wow, so those ones right there have the AMD chips in them. And so what are the two things we look for when validating a market? The first thing we look for is going to be the profits, the revenue, and all those things that go into the growth of the financials. And if we do look at that on AMD, for example, like you could look at it and you'll find that their quarterly income statement, their revenue is increasing huge and doubling year over year, more than doubling. Their net income quadrupled year over year, and their net income is increasing as well. Their balance sheet, they have like pretty good amount of assets. It's looking good. But then you look at the second indicator of a market, which is what is there as far as usage? Is there actual use cases? Because if a market's going crazy, a lot of profits, but there's not real usage, then the market's going to fade away. It's going to go away. But almost every big tech company articulated in their earnings in 2024, towards the end of 2024, they plan to invest more money into data centers and into AI infrastructure. And AMD is one of those stocks that stands to benefit. So when I saw the Starlink satellites above, that was like market usage. Like it's also being right in front of our eyes. We could see the stock shaping up. So this is the trend we'll be watching. We're going to look for that level here, possibly that 10% profits margin. Maybe we even see it sell down before then. Again, the market's been volatile. Short term, we expected. Long term, a little more certainty on AMD. I think it looks pretty good. And we'll continue to add to our long-term position and look to capitalize on some of these short-term positions here as well. So we'll be watching the market session. And if you ever want to learn how to do technical analysis, fundamental analysis, or be able to identify a good deal in the stock market, specifically in quantum, computing, AI, space, or tech stocks, like the cutting edge stocks, that's what we focus on in StockMeet. StockMeet is where I trade live every morning. If you ever want to join us, it's Monday through Friday. It's pretty early in the morning, 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. But for those of you guys that are up and about, it's a little easier on the East Coast, like we say. But if you want to join us there, you also get this free t-shirt that I'm wearing here that'll send to you no matter where you are in the world. It's super comfortable. And yeah, we go live. You can see my entries, see my exits, see how we trade, identify value in the markets, and how we invest each and every day. So if you are interested in surrounding yourself with other like-minded individuals and seeing our daily live trading, it's the second link in the description down below. And there's a huge sale there for you guys. So I'd encourage you to simply take a look. Thanks so much for watching. If I earned your thumbs up, hit the like button. Let me know what you think about AMD down below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.